where do I start? With this communication plan, where do I start? And that's where the elements of a communication plan come in. So number one, you need to identify your communication objectives and goals, and then identify your audience, find your message, determine your material and medium and channel of which you'll distribute that material, and then you implement your plan, and later you evaluate and update. Simple. So very quickly, we start. Your communication objective and goal. Your objectives are the big picture that you have for your organization and the results of effective communication efforts. Your communication objectives, like I mentioned, should align to your organizational objectives as they were outlined in your strategic plan. And so the next thing, after you've identified your objective and your goal, is to identify your audience. Now, identifying your audience is actually very easy. There are different types of audience members. So number one, you could look at potential participants in your program. So these are either the women, the persons with disability, the youth. It doesn't matter. That's your potential target group. It could also be people who work with you, your program directors, your nonprofit leaders. It could also just be the key stakeholders in the community, whether it's the political leaders, or if it's in education, the school board, the school principals, the PTA. And then also it could just be your collaborators, people you work with, the local government, the local hospital, partners and collaborators that you work with, the local businessmen. And then also another audience that you can have is your funding organizations. And so, the question you will be asking is, so how do I know? How do I know my audience? There's something we call an audience analysis, and you can look at, number one, the demographics. What is their age? What's their gender? What's their cultural background? Where are they? Number two, the language. What do they speak? What's the primary language? What do they understand? Number three, the motivation that drives your audience attitude and behavior on the issue. So identify what technology your audience has access to. And I want to give you a very good example. It could be an assumption that we say young people are on social media. But when you look at your specific community, how true is that? So really, those are the factors to consider when you're conducting your audience analysis. And it really, it's diverse. It doesn't matter the sector. So whether it's healthcare, you want mothers to bring their children for vaccination, identify where are they, what do they speak, how can we reach them? And so the next question after you know your audience is knowing your message. And your messaging is very important, and I'll tell you why. There are different ways of messaging. In fact, this is where the question that I had asked earlier, how do I keep my content going for a whole year? Every week, every 2 weeks, you're just posting, you're posting. How do you make that happen? The secret lies in your message. And I'm going to give you 3 pointers on how you can do your messaging, and you shall never lack the words to do your social media. So we start with the first pointer. Your message is a call to action. Remember what you said. In your communication plan, you want to communicate. There's something like we are just not communicating for fun. There's something you hope to achieve. And so even for your message, it's the same thing. So your message should have 3 key points that you want your audience to take away. And so number one, I'm going to share with you the 3 components of a good message. So number one, it has a need statement. And this looks at what need your NGO or your program or project is addressing, and why is it important. Number 2, your program strategy. It looks at your program strategy. So what do you do? What do you intend to do? How are you as an institution? How is it that you intend to fill that need? And finally, what is your call to action? You've identified the need, you've identified how to do the solution. Whoever is reading, what do you want them to do? And for this, I found a perfect example that really just outlines all this in one statement. And so that's number one about messaging. Number two, when it comes to your messaging, is you can give a messaging about a testimonial. And so when you're giving a testimonial, what are some of the factors to consider? So there you are, probably as the communications team that was selected after you devised your communication plan. And you're like, all right, so we've been able to cover some of the programs we have, and we've asked people to support. Now we want to show them some of the impacts of the projects that have been supported. So testimonials are a very good way to do that. And what entails a message with a testimonial? Number one, focus on the individual in the story. So who is the person in the story? Number two, who is leading the change process? What is the challenge? What is the context of the challenge? Why is it a challenge? What is the intervention you're offering? What's the timing of the story? Where does the story take place? And why is it important? You know, why does telling this story make a difference? That's how you can do your story. So no matter where you are, you know, identify a person of interest and then use these guide questions to be able to develop your post. The final way that you can be able to develop your messages is really just being aware of different factors. So number one, well, when you look at your website, there's usually a blog post section. So are you interested to give us regular blogs? You know, the local newspaper, if you have access to media, can you go to your radio station, go to your TV station, speak about something, and then do a summary on that? That constitutes a post. Next, you know, I mean, if you're in healthcare, there's so much going on about healthcare in the world. If you're in education, if you're in women empowerment, there's so much going on in that sector in the world. Sometimes you can just repost, identify maybe if it's a new trend or a new finding or a new research, which is relevant. Let me repeat that, which is relevant to your target audience. Remember, we are developing a plan. So that's why I put this table here. It's very clear. If it's a health research, you know, you could say, my audience is peers. My audience is partners in the sector. And so you put a thought process, a thought article on healthcare, and you know, and then you tag the partner healthcare organizations or your partner organizations who are in the same sector, and be like, hey, if you want good posts about healthcare and what is happening, probably around, say, malaria, maybe you're working on malaria eradication. So if you want good posts about malaria eradication, you know, go to this organization's social media. They always update the information. And so you see, that is something you can be able to do over the years. The other way you can work on your messaging is celebrating key occasions, your country's celebrations. You know, you could use that to just share information about what you do as an organization. And then the other thing, do not be deterred. You can also create content. Don't fear. You've been able to go to the community. You've identified in X area, there is a challenge of sanitation. Come back, write an article. In fact, as you do your report, say, hey, this report looks very good. Let me extract something and share this information with the world. That could also be a way that you create content. And so generally, you do not have an excuse. In fact, if worst comes to worst, retweet, reshare thought leaders in your section, in your industry, you know, in your sector who have shared something. You know, Impact Direct says we are keen to nurture women in Africa. Repost and write, as partners to Impact Direct, we are also keen to, okay, don't do that. But when worst comes to worst, right there, we are also keen to nurture women in Africa. Just that. And that goes a long way in your social media presence. But I think with this list, we really don't have an excuse as to say we really don't have material to share. Determine your material and your medium. Now, I love this picture by Sustain Cameroon. So let's start with material. I think I would encourage us, start from where you are. There's really no pressure. okay, well, there's no pressure to reach a certain standard. Start from where you are. And I think this picture illustrates that. Sustain Cameroon was able to come together. The materials, I can see those as salon items. They were able to share them, take a picture. At the top, you can see the logo, Sustain Cameroon. And then they actually handwrote, "Thank you, Impact Direct." Beautiful. Well done. So sometimes, you might feel, I don't have the capacity for XYZ. It's okay. Start with what you have, start from where you are. And so in terms of materials, once you've identified your target group, identify, what material do you need to develop? Earlier, I had shown you, I think it was also from Sustain Cameroon, where they were able to make the t-shirts and they were able to make the banner. Well done. Communication still carried out. Also medium. No. How do you intend to communicate? So we have technology and non-technological tools. So technology, like I've shared, update your website, images, probably, if you haven't done that, but also on social media, keep updated, be keen to update what you're doing. But also on non-technological media, be intentional on what you want to do. And very quickly, I want to move to the next slide to share with you what non-technological media means. So what you see before you is a communication outreach plan by an organization called Regreening Africa. And Regreening Africa is keen to reverse land degradation and work with about 500,000 households. They intend to work across 100 million hectares in sub-Saharan Africa, and they are in 8 countries. Now, at the end of this presentation, I have shared the link because I feel like Regreening Africa's communication plan is just the ideal where we should all aim to get to. But this is an extract on what they intend to do, how they intend to reach the citizens in Ethiopia. And so the activity list on how they intend to carry out their communication plan includes, and this is just to show you how you can have a mix and match. Again, also it depends. Like I mentioned, when you understand your audience, you realize you have different ways of reaching them. So for Ethiopia, and when you go through the brochure, you'll realize in different countries, they have different strategies. So Ethiopia, they say they'll use drama, they'll use songs and poetry, they'll print brochures, they'll use the church, they'll have roadshows, they'll use social media. In Ethiopia, they have farmer field days. So they'll show up for those. They will use the rural resource centers. They will have exchange visits. They will use community groups. They intend to use the media. They will definitely print out posters, brochures, training material, and technical reports. They will have trainings. They will have advocacy platforms, and they will have high-level meetings and workshops with government officials and stakeholders. So, after learning all this, at the end of the day, it comes to implementation. It comes to implementation. So very clearly, number one, I have mentioned that start where you are, just get a good camera, get a good phone, start taking quality pictures and identify how to, usually what we say, YouTube is your friend. So please just type in how to take photos that tell a story. You'll have several articles. It's very simple. Read on that. So that's stage 1. Stage 2, I want to challenge each and every one of us. I want to challenge those of us who have an interest. We have a platform called Canva. And after this, I'll share all those links. Please go ahead, learn. Again, it's very simple. The basics of creating a poster. It's very simple. And then the other thing is Google Calendar. If you're not using Google Calendar as an organization, please do. I think it really helps everyone to just be on the same page. All of you, hopefully, were able to schedule this in advance because we shared a Google Calendar. And we've also shared a Google Calendar of all the trainings across the year so that you're able to plan in advance. Also, what I want to speak to is it can be tiresome to do your social media posts. Imagine you have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. If you're on TikTok. Those are 5 platforms on which you have to stay active. So luckily, we have tools that support you. A while back, we used to use Hootsuite, which is actually very good, and it used to be free. but I just learned late last year, they removed the free option. So if you have a budget, for communication, go ahead, please use Hootsuite, because what you do, you put one post on all platforms and you can be able to schedule. So you can literally sit down one day, say today's communications day, schedule your posts for the month, and you're done. You're able to manage your communication plan as an organization. But if you don't have a budget for Hootsuite, there are still avenues you can use. So we have a platform called ClickUp. Again, I'll also share the link. Just have a look at it. So there you're able to schedule, and I'll also share how to use ClickUp. So you're able to schedule one post for all your social media. So that makes it very simple, and really there is no excuse as to why you should not have an effective communication plan for your organization. The last bit of all of this is about measuring your impact and what you're doing. So look at the communication last year. Where are you now, and what do you intend to achieve? And really, that's it.